wanted to come in and do a quick update to my Scorpio full moon video in light of the Uranian surprise we received yesterday, the choosing of this new Pope, which I did not expect to happen this week. I didn't expect this vote to come out as quickly as it did. I just thought it would take longer. And so I didn't consider this announcement in this full moon video. And true to form, Uranus surprises. And that's what I love about astrology and about this practice that I'm doing right now with the mundane charts, because, sometimes you see the chart and you think, oh, wow, this looks exactly like the chart of, the person that represents the United States right now. It makes sense that he would be represented in the chart. But then Uranus comes in and throws you a curveball and says, oh, this person looks exactly like this chart too. And so you don't always know what's actually going to be represented. And I thought it was kind of funny that this happened twice to me with the Saturn North Node chart and the death of Pope Francis, and somebody coming in and really upstaging the president, with Vance having visited Pope Francis right before he died. And then again, the choosing of this new Pope and how this new Pope's symbolism came in to match this chart very closely, also upstaging our president in a way. Now, there can be surprises that are happening. I was intrigued by this surprise announcement that the president said that he was going to announce before he took his Mideast trip. And I thought, okay, well, maybe this is the surprise. So there's other surprises coming. But I thought this choosing of this Pope that's from the United States, I was a little bit worried that this Pope was going to be a lot different than he appears to be. I thought being from the United States might be more negative. And if he was more in line with some of the themes that were coming out of this administration, I was worried because this administration really is shining a light on Christian values that seem to me to be in direct opposition with what the real essence of Christian values should be, in my opinion. But I love the symbolism of the Scorpio full moon, which is shining the light on the opposites, the polarities, so that we can see very clearly two sides of these energies. So there's two sides of American values. There's two sides of the Leo energy. There's two sides of the Christian values. And then there's two sides of power. And so I wanted to show you how this kind of shows up in the chart. But I wanted to tease that really quickly up front. Now, I am not a big fan of organized religion because just as this administration is showing, it can be very much distorted. I was brought up in a very distorted religious environment, in my opinion. And I've seen how the essence of religion has been distorted. The dogmas that come out of religion are just distortions of the essence of the spiritual purpose of these different religions. I don't really enjoy dogmas. I don't enjoy the ways that people use religion for their own means to create literal laws or to create their own interpretations of deeper spiritual truths that I've come to find in my own discovery of spirituality. I'm not really a big fan of the Catholic Church in general, so I just wanted to point that out. But I was a fan of Pope Francis. I did think that his reforms were good for the Catholic Church, so I did enjoy him in general. So let's talk about this name, Pope Leo XIV. When they announced his name, I just about gasped. I was like, Pope Leo, this is so perfect for this time, right? We've just been dealing with Mars in Leo opposing Pluto in Aquarius. And we've been dealing with this opposition for some time. And even though the opposition is past, Mars is still in Leo. And specifically, this full moon in Scorpio chart has its ascendant in Leo. So Leo is very present. Leo will be very present the entire time that Pluto is in Aquarius, because when we are dealing with astrology, we're dealing with not only the sign, but its opposite. And I would hazard to say we're always dealing with the whole cross. So when I talked about the fixed cross, we will be dealing with this energies, this cross, as a way to balance. So we'll be dealing with people who are on this cross on the world stage, because that's how the energies work. They attempt to balance each other. And when you're looking at your own astrology chart, it's very helpful to look at the signs in this way, because it helps you figure out how to balance the energies appropriately. This was really brought home to me in the study of human design, because human design brings in the concept of the cross, because when you are born, it also brings in your design, which is basically this balancing point, the square to your birth date. And then also you have the sun and the earth, which are opposites. So it really brings in this concept of the cross into this human design modality. So I encourage you to look that up, because it's very helpful in understanding at least some of your personal planets and how you can bring in balance to an otherwise sometimes imbalanced chart. So Leo the 14th, where does this come from? You'll know that he was inspired by Pope Leo, not only because of some of the reforms that he brought to the Catholic Church, but also because he has a lot of Leo energy in his own chart, which we'll look at. But who was Pope Leo the 13th? I thought this was very fascinating. When I looked at the time period of when he was Pope, which was in February 20th, 1878, was when he started his reign. It was when Uranus was in Leo on the south node, which is fascinating, because you'll see that Robert Provost, this new pope, has his Uranus in Leo at the very beginning of Leo, which we'll look at in a minute. And then he died in July 1903. Pluto was at 20 degrees Gemini, which is the exact degree of our president's north node. And it's almost the exact degree of Robert Provost's south node. So they have opposing nodes, just like Pope Francis did with this president. And we'll see some more patterns here. But let's talk about what this Pope Leo the 13th brought to the Catholic Church during his reign. He outlined the rights of workers to a fair wage, safe working conditions, and the formation of trade unions, while affirming the rights to property and free enterprise, opposing both socialism and laissez-faire capitalism. So bringing both the Leo energy and the Aquarian energy. Uranus in Leo on the south node. Very interesting. He also had a vital mission that he brought to the church. He believed that the church was a vehicle of social justice and maintaining the rights and dignities of the human person. Again, bringing the balance of Leo and Aquarius. Leo is about individual rights. It's about shining as an individual, that each life on earth has a right to dignity and to live out its purpose, its individual purpose. But also there's this concept of the whole, social justice, Aquarian energy. There's a balancing point. I thought that was so amazing to see this. And it shows and shines a light on what this new pope is also going to be focused on in the Catholic Church. This pope is also multicultural and has a very esteemed educational background. A father who was a superintendent in South Chicago. His mother was a librarian. She was a devout Catholic. His father was French and Italian, and his mother was from Spanish descent. He knows multiple languages. He lived in Peru for a long time. He was a missionary, but he had a calling at a very young age to enter into the priesthood. He went away from home when he was in the 8th grade to follow this path. It was very innate in him. And you can see this in his chart as well. So let's talk about his chart. I thought he had some fascinating connections with both the full moon and Scorpio chart, but also with our president's chart. And, there's some theories about our president that he had been a spiritual leader in his past life. And his chart in particular is very lucky. And I can see some of the symbolism from an evolutionary perspective that he was once a spiritual leader. And it was very hard for me to really come to this understanding and this possibility that he was this high spiritual leader in a past life because of some of the damaging things he's done in this life. One of the core theories of evolutionary astrology is we go through these multiple lives experiencing all aspects of life and its opposites so that we can become a well-rounded soul. We evolve through time and we carry this energy into the collective energy. It's not hard to believe if you buy into this framework, but I had a personal hard time with this for a little while. But if you look at the energetic exchanges between this new pope, you can see that they have past life connections and that they were teacher and student at one time, and they come across each other for very specific reasons. And it's this exchange. You remember this, you remember that. How are you going to deal with this time? How are you going to deal with that this time? It's almost like there's an opportunity, I think, in each of their experiences, in their exchanges, to come to a new understanding. So there's this exchange that happens, I think, with people that come into your life to bring you some kind of lesson or opportunity to deepen your learnings or evolutions in this time period. So let's take a quick look at the full moon in Scorpio chart with Robert Provost, or Pope Leo XIV's natal chart on the outer wheel. Now, we don't know his time of birth, so his moon could actually be at the last degree of Leo, but I have it in Virgo in this chart. But as you can see, it's very much close to his natal Pluto, and his natal Pluto is very much near the ascendant of this chart. And the ascendant is the exact degree of our president's Mars. So that's very interesting. But let's look at the symbolism here. He is a very emotionally intense person with moon next to Pluto. He has a lot of power, emotional power, and emotional feeling to his outlook in life. And also we have Saturn in Scorpio, which is a repetition of this intensity. It's on the IC of this chart. And you see that he has a Juno conjunction to Saturn and also a Hygeia conjunction to Saturn, which is represented in this full moon. Saturn and Scorpio people can be very intense, and the themes are about power and powerlessness. Who has power? What is power? How can I understand power from a deeper place? And he has a deep longing and memory to make a difference in the world. Do I have the power to change the world, to make an impact? Can root out corruption? Has a very strong moral code, can feel betrayed by people in power who misuse power. So has a very strong determination to make a difference, which is repeated again in that Uranus in Leo that you see here in the 12th house, is at 1 degree of Leo. So it's trining the Neptune at 1 degrees of Aries right now. So there's a lot of spiritual cognition that's coming through to him right now, which has brought him to this moment. Uranus in Leo can represent somebody who has a noble background, who could have been part of royalty in a past life. He has a feeling of being chosen again, being very close to God. This is really consistent with what his brother says about him, his classmates say about him. He knew very young, at as early as the 2nd grade, they say that he wanted to become a priest. So he has these very high expectations, especially with his Uranus opposite Chiron in Aquarius at 0 degrees. He has these high expectations. He feels the pain of humanity and how they have not been able to live into their purpose, into their closeness with God, into their manifest destiny, basically. So he's aligned with part of this movement that says that America, or the United States, has a manifested destiny, but he sees the contradictions that are happening and how people aren't allowed to fulfill their purpose. Uranus in Leo can have a respect for life in all of its forms. And you see this play out in his disagreements with what's happening to immigrants in our country. He is not from a strictly white background. His family is French and Spanish in descent. He spent a lot of time in Peru. So he does have this respect for life and a respect for everybody to fulfill their manifest destiny, their American dream. And he doesn't think that people should be cut off from that just because they're immigrants. He can be very open-hearted in his belief in humanitarian causes, wants to improve life for everyone, feels that pain very clearly, especially with Mars and Pluto opposing at that degree. That's been activated in him. And so that's part of the emotional intensity that he's probably feeling right now as he comes to fulfill his own destiny at this moment. And also some of the other connections that you see in this chart, he's got his sun at 21 degrees of Virgo and his Venus at 23 degrees of Virgo. And that conjunction is very much near the south node of this chart and was activated in the full moon eclipse. If you look at those degrees from a Sabian symbol, the sun at 21 degrees of Virgo says it's a royal coat of arms enriched with precious stones. And so this is a repetition of this royal background that he's come from. In human design, his sun is on the line of what Ra calls or labels the saint. So very much sainted. And then Venus at 24 degrees of Virgo is a flag at half mast in front of a public building. But what it really describes is exceptional community service. And so that's how he's presented in his calling to the priesthood, is community, and how we are all called to be servants. And that's I think the other side of the Leo energy is this open-heartedness and this belief that all life is sacred and that we're all called to shine our light in service of the other. So it's not so much about being this king that has ultimate power, that gets to wield his way, that narcissism of Leo, but it is more of the humble servant of the king here who is shining his light in service of the other, to shine his light to illuminate the manifest destiny of his subjects, and for everybody to shine their light together as this Leo energy that's just here to shine, and to shine in the ways that the sun can bring out the flowers, how the trees grow up in where the sun kind of shines. It's the subjects. It's like, I want some more of that sun. So please bask your sunlight in my face. And I am going to raise up and grow just to feel that sunlight. My mom was a Leo, and in her positive manifestation, she was a very creative person. And when you felt her attention, you felt the sun. And it was so glorious, that energy, so that's the light of Leo. That's the positive expression, that creative light, that respect for all of humanity, that respect of seeing the goodness in all, of seeing that goodness, that manifest destiny in all of life, in all people. It's like that spiritual connection, when we see the goodness in everybody, because everybody has their gradations of seeing that light. And then once you see that light can shine. Some people don't see it in themselves. And so when you see it in them, it's almost like you're bringing out their essence, their goodness. And so that's what I see in his Leo energy, the possibilities of that. And then you also see that he has his south node applying to Jupiter right now. And it's also on the exact degree of the president's sun. And if you know about evolutionary astrology, you know that nodal connections are very powerful, and they demonstrate past life connections. And he also has a Mercury in Libra, the ruler of his south node, and Mercury is connected to our president's Jupiter, which is also the ruler of his south node. And so they're exchanging information, they're exchanging lessons, because they were probably past life, either son, father, sun represents the father, or also teacher and student, because his Mercury is on conjunct Jupiter. And so that suggests the student pupil type of connection. And so when you think about that for a minute, you think about, oh, they're meeting together in this lifetime, and they're exchanging again this meeting to learn from each other, to say, hey, I know you, and this is what I'm helping you remember about yourself. When I started to study spirituality, I read this really great book, which was called Lost Christianity. And it really helped heal some of my ruptures in my faith from the religious background that I was brought up with. It helped me heal some of it, because it brought out some of the essences of the Christian faith and how it's lost its essence. And that's how I feel, I guess, about some of these spiritual leaders. They have an opportunity to bring out that real essence of those spiritual truths to people and heal those past distorted truths that they were taught. Because from a perspective of the Catholic Church, there's a lot of things that Catholicism does that feels very rote to me. But when you look into the historical truths of the Catholic faith, you see that there were reasons why these people did these rituals. And through these rituals, they can find the essence of truth through the symbolism of the rituals. But so many people have lost that connection that they just recite, and it's dead. It's a dead faith because there's no spirit behind it. And I feel that that's what's happening in our world today with AI and with our separation of the essence of things. We're separating even further from each other because we're not exchanging what's true, what's life, what's spirited, and we need to find the spirit again. And so that's what I feel that he's bringing out is this spirit of the Leo energy and of the spirit of what we're supposed to be connected to. So you think about that exchange. Remember the truths of your background, of your past. Remember your connection to God, because he did and has once been close to God. He has Pluto in the 12th house, with this symbolic to this past life connection to God. I was telling somebody else, they were like, why does he rename things? What is this obsession with renaming things? So he has this memory of being close to God, and God is the word, and the word can be very powerful. It's similar to that positive thinking group, this group of positive thinking, that if you just speak it and you think it, then you can bring it to pass. And sometimes that's true. And in the past, that has been true. And if you are in alignment with that essence, with that truth, it can become truth. But then you can also use it to a more nefarious purpose, which isn't aligned with truth, which becomes very delusional if you're corrupting it. And so eventually that catches up to you. But there is truth to that, and I think there's a memory there. And so these people that are coming into his life, there's an exchange of this memory. Remember the essence of spiritual truths. Remember the essence of this, the truth that all life is precious. It's not just these chosen delusions that you have about this faith of false power and a man-made truth. It's more than that. You've lost the essence of it. So let's talk about what they're exchanging at this moment in more detail. I thought the Sabian symbols were very enlightening to give us clues. Now, like I mentioned, this new Pope's nodes are in opposition to Trump's nodes, very much like the past Pope, but his South Node degree is on the exact degree of our president's sun. And what the Sabian symbol talks about is the beginnings of spiritual integration, support for our first attempts to creatively express our spiritual awakening. So this Pope has a deep understanding and past of spiritual integration, and he's exchanging that with our president at this time, and also the rulers of both of their South Node, the Mercury of this Pope and the Jupiter of our president, are at the exact same degree, 17 degrees of Libra. And the Sabian symbol of that degree is accepting responsibility for our misdemeanors. 2 men placed under arrest. What this speaks to is a breakdown in the constructive relationship between the individual and society and the expectable result. And so there's a memory here. There's an understanding of what happens when you have this breakdown and how you need to face the consequences of that. And so they're both exchanging this memory that there's a breakdown. Now, they both have different approaches to that breakdown. One person wants to go back to this delusion that if we just go back to an older time, we can fix our society and make America great again. Another person has another approach, which means that we need to evolve into a higher understanding of the sanctity of life. This Pope's Jupiter, which is the ruler of his North Node, is about the sanctification of this creative power. So again, this understanding of creative power and how it can be used for good, and how it can be used for good for all of life, and not just this chosen few that you think are the survival of the fittest, or the people that are chosen to walk into a life and other people be damned. And we're going to send these other people who are not chosen to their hell. And so there's this exchange of information that is shining a light on a higher spiritual truth during this time, and the different approaches, the different polarities of what these energies can represent. This different polarities of the Leo creative energy, and how we can inspire all of life, all people, to live out this American dream. We can inspire everybody to their true creative, this one person, this one race, this one religion, but it's all of life. And the way that we treat everybody matters. They all have a way to reach out to the sun, to grow in the ways that they are brought into this earth to grow into. Jesus loves all of the children of the world, black or white. It's not about this is the favorite race, or this is the favorite religion, or this is God's choice for who belongs or who doesn't belong. It's all of life. There's a different exchange of spiritual truths, of creative manifestation, the United States values. And so for me, that really brightened my day to see this, because you can get really bogged down in these negative manifestations. Even though there's this part of our country that believes in this manifest destiny for one type of person, the evolved soul sees it for everybody. And you can choose to view that Leo creative energy and that manifest destiny in a variety of ways. And I choose to go toward this other view, this more evolved understanding of spirituality in my own perspective and way of seeing things. So it was nice for me to see this other person shining at this time. Now, does he have negatives to him? You can only see somebody through their actions, I think, through what they leave behind. So I don't know necessarily that this person is sainted and the actions of his whole journey are going to be sainted. I'm not saying that, but I appreciate this other understanding, shining light on these other choices, this more evolved understanding of our creative spirit, and reaching out to everybody to be able to have a chance to live out their nature and to be able to manifest their purpose, their true unique purpose in this life. I think that's the wonderful polarity of Aquarian Leo energy, is for the good of all of the community to shine our light in our individual way, the good of all of us as a group effort to join in and shine our light on everybody's individual purpose. Is it possible? Yes, I believe that it's possible. Some people believe that we don't have enough resources for everybody and we have too much of a population. And so somebody has to be left out. Somebody has to die. And who gets to be chosen to live out this walk into Eden? We need to shine the light on everybody's purpose. So I think that's the positivity of that Leo Aquarian tension. That is the higher enlightened view of that polarity, I think, is how do we improve life for everybody so that they can walk into their manifest destiny, their unique manifest destiny, for them to reach their individual purpose that is different depending on the person that has come into this life. How can we support everyone to do this, not just a chosen few? How can we shine our light on everybody's individuality and not force them into our own version of our manifest destiny. We can't just snuff out somebody and send them to a prison because they aren't part of our Garden of Eden that we envision for ourselves. How do we shine the light for everybody to walk into their own individual purpose, their unique individuality, rather than I'm going to be at the top of the hierarchy and all these other people don't deserve it because they are not exactly like me. I hope it brings out a light in you to understand the polarities and the hope for this Pluto and Aquarius energy, the highest manifestations of this time period as we are balancing on this cross.